for a game winner, but it was no good. Blazers now have 7 games remaining and in a current race for the bottom 3. Cannot catch the Wizards or the Pistons, but they are now in a race against the San Antonio Spurs to try to get that third spot for the ping pong balls. The Final Four in the women's bracket is set. Caitlin Clark and Iowa get revenge over LSU, 94-87. They are headed to the Final Four. UConn beats USC 80-73 up at the Moda Center in Portland. At the game was friend of the program, Devon Pouncey. He's going to be joining us live in studio for the entire third hour, but I am back, and I got a lot of stuff to talk about. Good thing we got 3 hours of power coming up on Rip City Mornings, and it starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio. And a very happy Tuesday. It is RCM. I am your host, Justin Myers, super producer Brendan, safely partitioned on the other side of the glass. Thanks for getting up early with us or staying up late, however you are rolling on this particular Tuesday. Apparently, a lot's happened in the last couple of days as I am back from a fun-filled, sun-drenched. It's cold this morning. It took me 6 days in Mexico. My body's already adapted. It's going to be beautiful today, too. It's going to be like 72. It's like, yeah, that's not hot enough. I got that thin blood now.
My guy.
But we do have a lot of stuff to talk about on the big show. Women's college basketball took center stage yesterday all over social media, all over sports commentary, even internationally as I was traveling. So women's college basketball took center stage yesterday. Men's Final Four also set, getting ready to crown a national champions. Brackets busted all over the place. Blazers continue their continued losing streak. Are they in a full-on tank yet? Or is this team just that bad? And really, like, what makes it worse? What makes it worse? Because, the last 2 years, it was kind of an agreed upon, hey, wink, nod. We're going to have to lose some games because we don't want to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, right? That's that whole definition of insanity, which looks good on a in a meme, but Brendan, I don't think that's the actual definition of insanity. I think we've been doing that all wrong. It is something that will drive you potentially insane of doing the same thing over and over again, right? And expecting a different result. And that's where we were with the Blazers, right? 3 years ago. It's like they win about, 50-some games. 50, 52 games. They're about, 6, 7, sometimes 3. Going into the playoffs, we all buy in. Lucy, football. I think we're going to hit it this time. And other than that run in 2019, sit there. First round, blitz Dame. Nobody else steps up. This team goes out. Frustration. Changes are going to be made. Changes weren't made. And it was in a constant cycle of suck, which was good enough but not great, but not bad enough. And finally, I think it almost, as gross as it sounds now, as gross as it sounds, a couple of years ago, it felt oddly refreshing when they tanked the season away. You know what I mean? It felt oddly refreshing, like, hey, this ain't good, but it's different, It's like when you're in college and you like I would eat the same stuff every day. When you're poor, you just, my jam was Little Caesars. That was my jam. And then when I was really poor, and like the trope is always ramen noodles, my thing, like you would go, I would buy very cheap spaghetti sauce. And I made spaghetti all the time. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was jarred spaghetti sauce, probably overcooked spaghetti noodles. But, sometimes your roommate would have mac and cheese. Sometimes, like you said, you'd go ramen noodles. Sometimes it would be pizza over and over and over again. And that's what I would find my jam. And it's like, and then like you would go and have something different. And you're like, well, this isn't good. Or even like maybe you go over to like you'd make friends with like at the girls' dorm or something like they had actual different foods. Like this isn't any food you would buy at a restaurant, but it's different. Feels kind of different. And it's kind of refreshing. You're like, I think I might start doing more of that. So like a couple years ago when the Blazers were tank, and by the way, I see again, and a lot. I know I was out of the country, and I tried to stay off my phone as much as possible because when I was on vacation, I was drinking margaritas and soaking up the sun. That was my jam, and I did a lot of it. Don't need to tell you guys about it because I think the only thing more annoying than bracket. Well, my bracket's busted guy is the come back from vacation and tell everybody else how awesome it was guy. But even in the little bit of time I was on my phone as I was trying to check out, I could see some of the Blazer fans, and the argument was like, "Well, I mean, it's year one of the rebuild, right?" A lot of it after Scoot had what. Now, Brendan, help me out here, because again, good to see you, good to be back.
Good to see you too, man. I got some color.
I did, didn't I? You one day, I now I don't want to lay any blame here, all right? And it's nobody else's fault but my own. I am in charge of my own SPF, but Brendan, my wife's in charge of like getting my back. You know what I mean? In more ways than one, in life and in sunscreen. It's like, hey, I'm sunscreened all the way up. Can you get my back? My shoulders got a little sunburn day one. Now I powered through it. It wasn't, and trust me, I've had worse. But yeah, got a little sun. But I managed to stay away from the dreaded vacation, debilitating lobster sunburn that sometimes us redhead folk get. So help me out here, because you were here, you were doing the show. Scoot Henderson had the worst plus minus in the history of the NBA? That happened?
It did. Your boy was
the worst plus minus in the history of the NBA, and the Blazers lost by 60 again.
Yeah, so
that happened.
Yeah,
while I was gone.
It did. I'll be honest, and I mentioned this with Chris last week. Was pretty.
I know that I'm sorry to the listeners who are having to hear me catch up a little bit because you guys were in the fight.
No, just honestly,
but I was like, Scoot, worst ever.
Since they kind of happened, but since then I've kind of I was watching a lot of women's college basketball this weekend.
Yeah.
Justin, my Beavers made the Elite Eight, and
I just want to make sure that's not hyperbole.
No,
that's not like, because sometimes you go, this is the worst ever, and it's
No,
like
it
it's
was.
not statistically.
No, it was. It just
Since they've been counting plus minuses.
Yeah, it was bad, real bad.
But I saw a lot of people on the old X app, and to where I start, like, when I think about responding, I'm like, nope, vacation. Chuck the phone to the side. Because it was year one of a rebuild. I think this ain't year one of a rebuild, gang. And anybody that says it was year one of a rebuild is fooling themselves. This is year three. This is year three of the rebuild. A couple years ago when they first started this rebuild, obviously there was, and anybody that's ever rebuilt anything knows that you have all your plans, and then you get in and you start tearing stuff down, and all of a sudden, oh, that's different. That's different. That's different. And I'm sure they had certain intentions, right, when they started this rebuild of, all right, Dame's hurt. We finally have to move on from the bloated contracts. We got to move on from this current standard or this status quo, I should say. We got to move on from this. And like I said, it felt refreshing. It's like, all right, Dame's going to go. He's going to get the surgery. He's going to come back. He's going to be rested, maybe as healthy as he's ever been. And old Joe Cronin, because like I said, different, felt refreshing. Joe Cronin, he's going to get to work. Yeah, we're going to tank away this season, and it's going to stink. But it's not going to be the same get to the playoffs, lose in the first round, get a draft pick that maybe the head coach isn't all that jazzed about. He doesn't play, make conventional moves on the on the edges. Like, we're gonna really get in and get our hands dirty. Time has come. We got to do. Well, that didn't work. And we'll see what happens with Shaden Sharp. Shaden, I think he might play. Like might play the next couple of weeks. We'll find out. But it's like, all right, well, anything, got a top 10 pick. As I have been told over and over again, right? Free agents don't want to come to Portland. Can't make trades with the way the contracts were set up. The only way you're going to be able to get Dame that help that we have been talking about, you got to get a top 10 pick. Got a top 10 pick. Took a guy that didn't play college basketball. That was an interesting decision. Didn't play a lot of high school basketball either, but super talented. Then it happened again. You guys know the drill. Tanked away the season again. It's like, all right, maybe this time, because they're really bad this time. Maybe even a top. Wembanyama's out there. Well, they got a top 3 pick. Ooh, they got a top 3 pick. You got Scoot. You got Brandon. The tradable assets. Let's go get Dame that. Nope. And here we are. Now in year 3 of the rebuild. Dame's not here. You're about to have the 3rd worst record in the league again. You went from one cycle of suck to the other. And it felt refreshing 3 years ago. Now, I'll be quite honest, it's just getting old. It's just getting old.
Well, not to be too cliche, Justin, with our references, but I really do feel like it's Andy Bernard, the end of The Office, when it's like, I don't know if Blazer fans knew, like, they were in the good old days. Like, 2-3 years. Like, when you and I were sitting there and Yusuf Nurkic was fouling to get out of a Denver series, who would have thought that was actually kind of the good old days comparatively?
And I am all for, let's do something different, right? This isn't working. You should strive for excellence, right? You strive for excellence. But I'm tired of being sold that that this plan is working. That's where I'm at, right? I'm tired of being sold that this plan in its current form is working. Because you're now in year 3. And in the, 2 weeks? 2 weeks, the offseason is going to start, and we're going to be sold again about draft and ping pong balls. Well, meanwhile, watching everybody else play in the playoffs. All right. But more basketball talk. We're going to talk to Pounce coming up in hour number 3. College basketball, women's college basketball took center stage. I'm very curious when the numbers come back, what the numbers. Is this an actual cultural sports event that happened last night? Was this a social media creation? And a word of caution, as it seems as though women's college basketball, and I am happy for them, is having its moment. Things not to do. Talk about that coming up next here on 620 Rip City Radio. There is an old phrase, right? That the rising tide lifts all the boats. And it sounds good. Somebody might have it stitched into a pillow in their lake house, with all the, no worries at the lake. It's like the rising tide lifts all the boats. But there are sometimes in sports where it is appropriate. NFL players have figured this out, this concept of the rising tide lifts all the boats. Because you know what you never, ever, ever hear of is NFL players complaining about other players' salary, unless they're running backs. It was one of the things that shocked me when I went from primarily covering college football to covering NFL football was I was thinking, man, that guy just went in and he got a deal done. He got restructured. He's now getting paid because the difference in the NFL players and you and I would assume, is their salaries are public. And sometimes I think that might be a good thing. I think a lot of time it's probably a good thing that we all don't know exactly what we make most of the time because it can cause some tension and it can cause some animosity and it can cause some jealousy. But in the NFL, they figured out that culture of the rising tide lifts all the boats. And when a player goes in and he gets a deal and he gets an extension, a $3, $4, $5 million raise, more guaranteed money, you would think, oh, his teammates are going to be jealous. That's very rarely, if ever, the case. Because those NFL players know that, well, that just upped the market for all of us. Now we know they're willing to spend. And if they're not going to be willing to spend, somebody else will be. See, it's the concept of the rising tide that lifts all the boats. It was one of the things that college football had kind of figured out, that football obsession in our country helps everybody. Helps everybody. From high school football on Friday, right? There's a reason why they have pep rallies for the football game. And look, I played baseball. We didn't get pep rallies. Okay. The band didn't play at the baseball games. Okay. The cheerleaders.
They played a hoops game sometimes.
They would play at the hoops games, but it was a smaller band.
It was.
The ensemble band or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, we have a football obsession. That obsession with football, the rising tide lifts all the boats. And college football kind of figured it out that, college football is different than the NFL in a good way. And it actually has helped over the years kind of create its own culture. Because for a long, long time, college football never tried to compare itself to the NFL. Well, that's changing now, and I think it's making things worse. And I bring all this up because women's basketball last night, not just college women's basketball last night had a moment. A moment that hasn't happened for that sport in a long, long time, which was an anticipated matchup between two rivals. And a lot of people, including Johnny-come-latelys and casuals, more on that in a moment, were tuning into the sport, which you would think that is the rising tide right there. More eyeballs, the better, right? The more engagement in your sport, the better. That rising tide is going to bring in more attention. That attention is going to bring in more money, and that more money is going to help all entities of your sport if you do it the right way. But there has been something that has happened this year, and I think a lot of it has to do with Caitlin Clark. A lot of it has to do with sports argument culture, which I am in. I have made my career. Whereas, we are just kind of looking for something to argue about. And it felt like a lot of times this year, with all of the eyeballs and the attention that has been placed on women's college basketball, which is deserved and has been earned, but it comes with this one red flag that I think you need to stop. Stop with the comparisons to the men's game. Just let it be. I say it all the time with college football. Let Saturday football be Saturday football. Don't compare it to the NFL because it's a different thing. It's a different animal. Men's college basketball going on right now. Zach Edey is the best player in the men's game right now. He's not going to play in the NBA, and if he does, he's going to get maybe 7 minutes a night and he's going to be a nice big man that's going to have 6 fouls to give. But that's fine. Don't need to compare the two. But there has been an obsession over the last couple of months, and it's kind of culminated the last couple of weeks, which is look at all the numbers, drawing more than the men. Like, stop with the constant comparisons to both. You have a moment in time right now in women's basketball, and it is great. And from everything I have heard, and Pounce is going to join us in the third hour, other than the whole three-point line fiasco, and I guess it's not funny, but like other than the three-point line fiasco, sounds like Portland came off well. Big-time event city. I know there's a lot of people that worked really, really hard to make that whole event happen. But we need to stop the constant comparisons of, hey, is Caitlin Clark the true scoring leader in the NCAA? Or is it Pistol Pete? It's like, they play different sports. They play different sports. And it's okay to admit that they play different sports. It's not a condemnation of one. They played 2 different sports. And once you start trying to compare the two, that's when you run into the problems. Because then comes, as I mentioned, the casuals. Then the casuals come in. The Johnny-come-latelys come in. And now all of a sudden, now you've got arguments. I know that I live in a world, and I have created a career from living in a world where we argue about sports. And I've always kind of felt like, I'm not hurting anybody, right? Not really hurting anybody. We're the toy store of the Department of Life, right? We're the toy department. You go on, you have a hot take about politics, and that hot take creates opinions. Those opinions have actual consequences. I've always kind of felt it's real easy to come in here and talk about how this player, that player, this coach, because you know what? Nobody's ever missed a three-pointer because I had a hot take about it, right? But there's been this weird back and forth, and I feel like this time around of like one side, wow, women's outdrawing the men. I feel like women's basketball is having a moment because Caitlin Clark is a superstar, and just like, and Brendan knows this because he loves his comic book movies, there was a rival. Some may say villain, but apparently you can't say LSU is a villain because then you're being a terrible, terrible person. They're the bad boys of women's basketball, and it's kind of okay because some of us kind of like a little trash talk. You get into good versus evil, and I understand the underlying juxtapositions, how that could be wrong, but it's not as if LSU women's basketball is the first team that's like talk trash and had a crazy coach who encouraged it. Wasn't like they're the first team in sports history to then kind of take on the role of the bad. LeBron tried to be the bad guy. Remember when he got to Miami? He's like, well, I guess I'm just the villain now. Miami Hurricanes football in the 80s and then later in the 2000s embraced it. The bad boy Pistons embraced it. But that's what happened here. You had the superstar, the golden child, the scoring statistical leader, going up against a team that trash talked a little bit. And let's be honest, I don't know much because I am I will admit, as a women's basketball, I am a casual. Brendan, I get the sense that Kim Mulkey wants to be the villain. I get the sense that she plays that role to a T.
Oh, 100%. I got a chance to
wants it.
I got a chance to read the expose article that the Wall
was that not the biggest big doll dud of all time?
Did you read it?
I did.
Yeah,
I was like, what is going to happen? Was like, she's crazy psycho perfectionist. Who treats certain players a certain way and treats other players a certain way, and is
somebody who hasn't spoken to their father in 37 years. I think it's safe to say she can hold a grudge.
Yeah, exactly.
So just that was my big takeaway from it.
My big takeaway was this
37 years, Justin.
This was all the fuss was about? This is what the threatening to sue?
That too.
This was we will take legal. This was what all the fuss was about? Is that you and your dad clearly have a grudge and a family feud that has gone, not the first I've ever heard of that. And that, as a coach, clearly has her own style. I don't know. I was up early before the rest of the group, so I was like, I'll read this on the veranda as I was sipping coffee, enjoying a beautiful Mexican sunrise. And I was like, this was it? This is what we're threatening to sue about? This there's not one thing I read in this where I was like, I am shocked. I was like, no, that stands to make sense. And I understand there's, when you start talking about how, because I also saw that there was a LA Times column that got a lot of heat. Now, I didn't read that entire one. I read the first couple of paragraphs. And when you start doing good versus evil, and then there is is a clear racial divide, I get it. Probably not the best way to go about it. But rivalries are good. Different styles are good, right? They say, what is it, Brendan? Variety is the spice of life, right? I want Kim Mulkey and LSU and trash talking and, doing the John Cena can't see me, and not because Brendan, you've been around women's college basketball. You covered Oregon State when they went to a Final Four. And there is a bit of protection of the golden gooses in that sport, shall we say, whether it's Gino Auriemma, whether it is certain players, right? There is a certain protection of the golden gooses. And a year ago, LSU came out and said, take this, golden goose. And I love it. It's good. It's good. It's good for the sport. It's good to have characters. It's good to have narratives. It's good to have rivalries. And it's also okay to point out the differences. It's okay to understand that that style, that player, very different than that one. So we had our moment last night. It was fun to watch. Here's what I'm wondering, because the one problem that college sports has always had is there is no power that be. You always hear about, the powers that be. The NCAA takes a lot of heat, right? As it probably should, especially for that three-point line thing. Really? We didn't measure them out? You brought in the court, gang. That's your court. But one of the biggest problems is that even the biggest moneymaker like college football, it's a rudderless ship. There's not one person in charge. You look at the NFL, say what you will about Roger Goodell. And there's a lot you could say about Roger Goodell. But cannot deny he has a clear vision and a path for the league that he is a commissioner of. Say what you will about Adam Silver, and I've been very critical of Adam Silver, and I think Adam Silver's done some things to the NBA that I am not a fan of. But he has a clear path, and his path is to globalize the NBA. That whole in-season tournament, that's European soccer, football. That's what it was. The playoff format and all that, like, that's all European soccer. International players coming in, international dollars coming, clear path for what the NBA is from a marketing standpoint, right? It's the problem with college sports. There's no marketing arm. This is a bunch of stuffy suits. So ultimately, Friday is going to come. Women's Final Four is going to play. Maybe Caitlin Clark and Iowa win the whole thing. Maybe they don't. Either way, it's going to be a story. It's going to be a fantastic story. How, when Caitlin Clark and potentially Angel Reese and all of these players go into the WNBA, how does women's college basketball take this moment that has more eyeballs and more attention, this rising tide? Well, I'll tell you one thing you should not be doing. Compare it to the men's game and try to compete. It's not going to happen. Make it your own. Make it your own game with your own culture, with your own fan base. And I'm not saying you can't have more. I'm saying the comparative game is a losing effort. College basketball, I hate it. I hate it when people compare college basketball to the NFL. I cringed when Chip Kelly sat there and was like, well, look at what the NFL does. Look at what the NFL does. Like, you're not the NFL. You're not. You're college. You have young players who make dumb mistakes. So I am fascinated to see what happens, because at some point, Caitlin Clark's going to be a WNBA player and likely a WNBA superstar. And it's going to be fun to maybe potentially see the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark rivalry head into the professional ranks, maybe. And then you get Sabrina, and then you get Kelsey Plum, you get Breanna Stewart, right? You get a lot of names. Is this a Caitlin Clark bubble in women's college basketball? Or can you build off of this momentum? Which I think you can. Because as I just spent the last, 16 minutes or so saying don't compare the two, I'm going to compare the two real quick. Because this is the one advantage that women's college basketball has over the men's game right now. And I know you're not supposed to admit it, but the one advantage you have is that the WNBA does not pay as well as the NBA. How is that an advantage? Very simple. Juju Watkins, who just lost yesterday in Portland to UConn, but obviously is going to be the game's next great superstar, in my opinion. And again, we'll talk to Pounce about that coming up later. She's going to be at USC for the next 2-3 years. There's great superstars in the men's game, and you're kind of learning who they are throughout this tournament. But guess what? All the good ones are going to the NBA because the NBA pays too well. NBA pays too well. The WNBA does not. It's a market thing. It is not an equality thing. It's a market thing. It's tickets sold. It's a whole part of this. But women's college basketball has an advantage in terms of marketing that men's doesn't, which is your superstars will be around for years and years and years. You start doing the college football, NIL, transferring left and right, you're going to lose your momentum. You start playing the comparative game, you're going to lose your momentum. Unfortunately, college athletics just doesn't have great leadership. But it was a moment last night. I was watching. Watched half of it, part of it in an Uber. Got a little delayed out of Puerto Vallarta. There's a big, long line, apparently, of people trying to leave Puerto Vallarta yesterday. All right, coming up, we are going to wrap up hour number one. We have got, we got some round ball rock to talk about. There's other, Joel Embiid coming back. Wemby's throwing basketballs into the crowd, but apparently he was doing it for good, but still got fined. So we'll talk some NBA coming up to wrap up hour number one. But before we get to all of that, I do want to tell you about the Oregon roofing, siding, windows, and bath experts. That's what I'm talking about. The good folks at DeBella. And they are a proud supporter of Operation Homefront. Look, spring is a great time to update your home. Right now, you get a free estimate from DeBella, and you'll have a fantastic customer service. Why? 15,000 five-star reviews. That number continues to grow each and every day, but 15,000 plus five-star reviews on Google. Now is the perfect time, again, to connect with DeBella because they still have this financing opportunity I've been telling you about all year long. No payments until 2025 on approved credit. DeBella will get you hooked up with a free, no-obligation appointment, fast, easy, convenient, scheduled an estimate on your time, and they do unbelievable work. HGTV, Better Homes and Garden, accolades from Angie's List, Home Advisor, all those are the big boys. That's the Final Four right there. So connect with DeBella for your free, no-obligation appointment. The siding, roofing, and bath experts here in the great state of Oregon is DeBella. All right, so 7 games left in the regular season for your Portland Trailblazers. So they can't catch the Wizards. Are the Wizards the worst team in the league, or is it Detroit, or are they still battling back and
Detroit.
forth? Detroit's the worst team in the league. Wizards are right there. But there's a race to the bottom, or at least the race to the bottom 3. The Blazers are right in that mix. 7 games remaining in the season. But believe it or not, there's actually a whole league going on where Joel Embiid potentially is coming back. Wembanyama threw a basketball in the crowd. I saw that over the weekend, and teams are getting ready to start the playoff run. Plus, interesting adjustment to the upcoming NBA draft, which could be potentially interesting, but in my opinion, there's still one thing we got to fix with the draft. All that and more with Roundball Rock right now. Okay. Did we lose Roundball Rock? I went to Mexico and we deleted John Tesh? We're going to have an investigation into this. What on earth is happening here? Somebody deleted John Tesh. I did a whole thing. Whole ramp up. Getting ready. What on earth is going on over there? All right, that'll work. Woo! All right. This is more important than that 3-point line fiasco. There will be an investigation. Anyways, I think the big news in the NBA going on right now, Joel Embiid potentially playing tonight. I saw he might be coming back. If not, going to be in the mix. So what does that do now in the Eastern Conference? Celtics are a wagon. Nobody's even close. They're going to win about 63 games this year. Obviously, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and the Knicks right behind them. If Embiid comes back, currently Philadelphia is sitting 8th. They would still be part of the play-in. Is Philly dangerous if Embiid comes back, or is this rest versus rust kind of thing? Like they've been playing all year, playing most of the year without him.
He's an MVP candidate, so I think if he's healthy, right? Now we're going to see some, pushback. Maybe he really does need a full offseason. I can see that for sure, Justin, but
here's who I think it affects the most. Because if they in the play-in end up becoming the 8th seed, then I don't think a big deal. They end up playing Boston. But if you're Giannis and Dame, who would you rather play as the 2 seed, a team that doesn't play an awful lot of defense, right? If you were sitting there, you're the Milwaukee Bucks, and you're Giannis and Dame, obviously the Hawks and the Bulls, those 2 teams are going to really, really have to start playing different basketball. Both of them 5 games under 500. But if you are the Bucks, who would you rather play? Philly, or would you rather play Miami in the first round? Because you got Philly with Joel Embiid, but coming back hurt. Because I think of the top 2 teams, the Celtics and the Bucks are the most susceptible to getting knocked off because of all the stuff that's happened this year.
Well, and
who would you rather play in the first round, Miami or Philadelphia? If you're the Bucks,
Philadelphia for sure. Because if you're the Bucks, how is it not
Embiid?
How is it not in your head that Miami team beat you last year? Right? And that same Miami
but it's
team.
a different coach. Dame's there.
It's true.
Different.
Slightly
other than
different.
Giannis, right? You got a whole slew of different players.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think that, Milwaukee is probably going to run into some problems with that defense, as we mentioned. But, I never want to play the Heat. Eric Spoelstra's too good, man.
There's something about, like, Jimmy Butler, Eric Spoelstra, and I hate the whole Heat culture
I know
thing.
you do. That's why I didn't say it there.
It's like, it's the Patriot way. It's the Heat culture. It's like, yeah. You guys won a lot when you had the best players. Now, last year, I could be like, all right, you made the finals with a team that probably should not have won. They were losing the fourth quarter of the Bulls in the play-in. In the play-in, they were losing in the fourth quarter to the Bulls. Ultimately ended up in the NBA Finals. But, I don't know. Like, I still don't know if I want to see Embiid. Because that's not an 8 seed or a 7 seed if he comes back. That's such a huge difference. They're probably like, hey, can Philly make a run? Can we play the Pacers? So Embiid coming back. I did see that they are going to be making the NBA draft a 2-day event. Now, I don't know why anybody watches after the 10th pick anyways, and I don't know if this is it doesn't sound like it's an attempt to be like the NFL, where like you could watch the second and third round and it's still fairly interesting. But I guess it sounds like more and more teams want time with those second round picks because you've got so many international players. That's all well and good. Can we just do this? Can we just let the teams trade the picks? What do I mean by that? I know that you're probably saying, Justin, they already trade the picks. No, they don't. They draft for the other team, and they put the stupid wrong hat on, and it gets all ridiculously confusing. Well, this team is just do like the NFL does. This pick now belongs to this team. That team makes the pick. We don't do this weird hat swap thing. Right? Why is that still a thing?
It's one of the more bizarre things in sports.
Thank you.
It is, yeah.
How is that still a thing?
Just the way the league calendar works, because it's like they can never officially process trades. That's officially, which is no worries though. Woj is just gonna break it on Twitter.
All right,
it's very weird.
Coming up, hour number 2, we have got a make or miss. Also, I know I had a beautiful time on vacation, but I also traveled yesterday. Oh boy, do I have got a couple of grumpy old man takes. So we will get off my lawn. Also looking forward to having Pounce coming in hour number 3. That's all coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio. It is 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trail Blazers came up just short against the Orlando Magic last night, falling 104-103. DeAndre Ayton had a look for the game winner, but in and out. Blazers now have 7 games remaining in the season. Final four for women's basketball is set. Caitlin Clark gets revenge against the LSU Tigers after last year's national championship game loss. They move on to the Final Four, eliminating LSU 94-87. Meanwhile, here in Portland, they fixed the three-point line, and UConn gets the best of USC 80-73. So Gina Oriyama and the UConn Huskies move on to the Final Four as well. Coming up in an hour from now, friend of the program, Devon Pouncey, is going to be joining us live in studio. But hour 2 of Rip City Mornings, it starts right now, 620 Rip City Radio. And welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Glad to be with you. Glad to be back. Refreshed. A little sunburnt. A little jet lagged. Neither here nor there. We're moving on and moving forward because we have got a ton of stuff to talk about in approximately 20 minutes. We have got Make or Miss. It is Tuesday, and you might be thinking, Justin, you're just back from vacation. How on earth are you going to have anything to be grumpy about? Well, I can always find something. I did a little bit of traveling yesterday. Believe it or not, do not have any, there are some old standards of, grumpy old man stuff. What do we call them? Gate hoverers. It's like you're not in group A, B, or C. You're not it. So why are you hovering here around the gate? Those, but I've kind of made my peace with the gate hoverers. Also I would like to do a psychological experiment. Brendan, come with me on this journey, because I know that's also a thing that people, when the plane lands and then everybody knows that it's going to be a while before they open the door. Do you know what I mean? After you land, and I can understand if you were on the aisle and you're especially if you're tall, you're just look, I got to get up and I got to stretch my legs, right? But what is it? What is it about people on an airplane that when the door finally does open and their rolly bags are up in the bin up above, why is it all of a sudden the most difficult thing in the world is to get that bag down? It's not a difficult thing to do. Now, I can understand if you're maybe a little bit short or, if maybe you packed a little bit too much and maybe you need somebody to help. But grown, adult, able-bodied men that just do not have the ability to take a bag from an overhead bin. I sat and I watched. That became my fun game as I landed the plane yesterday. A little tired, as I mentioned, a little hungover, a little sun, all-inclusive, baby. I am so bloated right now I did not get cheated on all-inclusive. No, sir.
Way to do it.
Did not get cheated. Now, the margaritas at the all-inclusive, they didn't quite hit the same as the margaritas you would get at, a regular bar. Probably for the best. But I'm sitting there and I'm watching this plane, and it lands, and people get up and stand. I'm like, all right, fine. Now I'm a window seat guy, so it's I can't stand. I'm not moving anywhere anytime soon. But what on earth is it where people just forget how their body works? Is it because of they're trying to go too fast? They say slow is smooth and smooth is fast when they try to fire. Remember fire drills when you were a kid at school? It's all right, no, don't. Everybody's walking in a grown, able-bodied adult men that are unable to get a bag down, and they're just flustered. They are flustered. And I think it's the line is backing up behind them. I noticed that yesterday. Am I going to grumpy old man that one? No. No, I'm not. One last thing on the airport, and then definitely want to talk about some hoops. Might get into some football as well. Do you think they design the seats in the airport waiting area like to be the most uncomfortable thing in the world, like on purpose? Like, is there
Yes.
like, what do you, is it because they don't want people to sleep? Is that it? Is that they want to discourage people from actually sleeping?
Those
And
arm
look, I'm
bars in
not
between
saying
are terrible.
I'm not saying you should have lazy boy recliners. Shout out Rip City Drive. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you should have Barca Lounge. I'm not saying you should have but those are the most uncomfortable seats ever, and they're spaced out weird. And it is a battle. It is a battle. We saw an opening, had about 40-minute wait before boarding. Saw an opening for 2 seats in a very crowded Puerto Vallarta airport. Wife gave me a shove, like, go. Like, lead block for the tailback, go. But there's got to be a reason for that, right? So, and it's not like, oh, well, they made them in the 70s and they just kept. No, they've got like the new ones, like you can plug in your iPhone underneath there. None of that will be on Grumpy Old Man. That's just regular travel stuff. But we'll have Get Off My Lawn coming up. Brendan's going to have Make or Miss. The big story in sports right now, women's basketball. Women's basketball had a moment. We got the Elite Eight matchup. This is what the tournament wanted. This is what the NCAA and the when they put the tournament together, wanted this matchup. Couldn't wait to see if they could make it to the Final Four. They got the Elite Eight matchup and kind of lived up to the billing. Right? Caitlin Clark drops in 41 points. What was she? 9 of 20 from beyond the arc? But women's basketball had its moment last night, and well-deserved and fun to watch. Mentioned it in the first hour of the show. Like, I'm fascinated to see what happens next with this sport, because I think a good chunk of this started with Sabrina, because I think there was a lot of UConn and Tennessee fatigue for a long, long time. And we saw this with college football, right? What was the biggest complaint, Brendan, of the college football playoff? Same teams every year. Well, it's the same teams every we get. Like, there was Alabama fatigue. It was just Alabama every year. It's Alabama and it's Ohio State, and you get like that fatigue. And I think for a long, long time in women's basketball, there was some UConn and Tennessee fatigue. Well, it's UConn and it's Tennessee, and it was a great rivalry. And 2 Hall of Fame legendary coaches built up their programs, but it's kind of fun to see Iowa and LSU along with a blue blood like UConn. So Iowa, UConn,
NC State.
NC State's having a moment right now, aren't they?
They're a 3 seed in women, so a little less unexpected, but yeah, totally.
But who didn't they knock off?
Number 1 Texas.
They walked off number 1 team. Yeah.
Well, one of the 1 teams. Number 1 team, still undefeated South Carolina.
Clearly, yeah. And then you got South Carolina, and they're
undefeated.
And they're a wagon.
So Caitlin Clark's great. Is she undefeated this year? That's why I said South Carolina. I still think the team to beat.
Well, but again, this is what the sport needs. You need storylines, right? And that's why last night was such a great thing. And I know that it is taboo, right, to maybe mention that, Iowa and LSU might be a little bit different in the way that they, approach the game, in the way that they are coached, in the style that they play, in the manner is like, it's okay. It's okay to admit that. We need that in college basketball. The reason why, one, Caitlin Clark is a superstar. Caitlin Clark is a superstar. Second reason is because there was clearly some animosity from a year ago. Third reason, Kim Mulkey's a cartoon character. She just is. She's a cartoon character. She is a caricature. She is now moved into like cosplay. Like she's playing a role that like was almost seemed like it was written by someone in Hollywood. But all that stuff is great. And admitting that that's a lot of the reason that this was popular last night, on top of the fact that you have fantastic, incredibly talented, and gifted and hardworking athletes. It's okay. It's okay to throw that out there. Now, I don't know if I would say good versus evil, and when you start saying villains, when there is clearly an underlying part of this, but that rivalry, fun to watch. And let's be honest. We all saw Angel Reese kind of get into it with a UCLA assistant coach I popped up on my feed, right? We all remember the John, you can't see me, John Cena, and pointing to the ring finger and all that stuff. We're kind of hoping there might be some fireworks last night. Because that's what sports is about. I am fascinated, though, to see kind of ultimately what happens with this moment that women's college basketball has. And obviously, there's still a Final Four. And let me tell you, if they get everything that they want, when I say they, I'm talking about the NCAA and ESPN, who has the rights to the tournament and everything. You get undefeated South Carolina, coached by one of the greatest point guards in women's college basketball history, going up against Iowa. And by the way, if Iowa beats UConn, that's a big if, but if Iowa beats UConn, Brendan, don't think that there isn't going to be a little bit of a thing there between Dawn Staley, who's the head coach of South Carolina. And I don't know if it's going to be vocal, but I got to wonder what Dawn Staley is thinking, hearing all these people, Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp and, around the horn guys, all like, is Caitlin Clark the greatest of all time? Dawn Staley's got to be sitting there going like, I don't think you all ever watched me play. I don't know if you all pit. So had this discussion at the gym last week. Greatest combination of playing career and coaching career. And I think Steve Kerr is in the mix. Phil Jackson's in the mix. That answer's Dawn Staley. The answer's Dawn Staley. Olympic gold medals. And don't think you get your number one undefeated team going up against the now, is Caitlin Clark the GOAT? Dawn Staley, I guarantee you. We'll just see about that. Let's maybe pump the brakes a little bit. Boy, if they'd let me shoot threes that way.
I know this from experience, Justin, because no team has gone undefeated and won the women's championship since UConn when they won 4 in a row. And I was there to watch them with my own eyes win that 4th. Justin, just quantify for us, listening real quick, like how hard it is to be undefeated in a season, regardless of men's or women, but just undefeated.
Well, that, and then you go into a tournament where, 64-team field, one team's going to be undefeated. That's how hard it is, because in football, you could have, not anymore, but like you used to be able to have 3 undefeated teams in college. Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. All right, coming up next, we have got Make or Miss, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, coming up in the third hour of the show, our good friend Devon Pouncey. He's a basketball analyst for the Rip City Remix. He's going to be joining us, talking a lot of hoops. He was there at Moda Center last night, watched UConn punch their ticket to the Final Four. They'll be taking on Caitlin Clark and Iowa. Also get his thoughts on the men's side of the bracket. You got NC State on an absolute run. Kind of bringing back flashbacks to that Beaver run from a couple of years ago, right? You know my obsession with butterfly effects. And because obviously I don't follow NC State basketball all that close. But this run that NC State's on,
It's a lot like Oregon State men's basketball.
but it started, I believe, the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament, that if they would have lost that game, they were not going to the tournament. They might not even made to the NIT. And I think a 78% free throw shooter for Virginia missed twice, so that they had a buzzer-beating 3 to tie the game to end up winning in overtime. Now they're in the Final Four. They needed one dude who was almost an 80% free throw shooter to make one free throw. And their season's done. Their coach is maybe fired. Instead, he gets an automatic raise and I think a 2-year extension.
Be wary of that extension, NC State. Just
But it's
be wary. But no, I mean,
but the 2-year extension is
Yeah.
automatic.
Yeah,
he
like
had it written in his contract that he gets a 2-year extension. I think if he made the Sweet 16,
yeah,
and they're like, he ain't making the Sweet 16. Final Four bound.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I mean, and for what it's worth, Justin, I think, that's the thing about college, right? And going into the tournament, you made the great point, like, that's why the women's tournament's going to have its moment more, because we know these guys, other than, or know these girls, I should
Players,
say.
yeah.
Know these girls.
All right, I had this discussion once. Is that a universal term?
I don't know. I've kind of been told.
I've always kind of felt like it was, but I'm also like,
y'all. I'll just say y'all.
I'm middle-aged, so
Yeah, I'll bring out my southern.
I might sound like a boomer. Like, what? Oh, come on, guys. And it's like, you're not supposed to say that.
But no, like, I didn't know, and we talked about it yesterday. I didn't know who DJ Burns was before the tournament started, right? DJ Burns is
Hard to miss.
now, yeah, he big boy. Big boy.
Big dude.
Well,
Yeah, but nobody should have, though. That's the point. Like, nobody should have, because they were mediocre at best. Like, they were an average ACC team. There are like 300 teams in college basketball. You can't pay attention to all of them. But in the Final Four now, he's making a run. Purdue, Zach Edey, are they going to pull the Virginia? Is Purdue going to pull the Virginia?
they're not better than UConn. Sorry, Justin, you tell me right now. I would not put money on anybody in that field other than Dan Hurley's Huskies, man.
They are so good.
dominant.
They are so good. And again, I was kind of watching. I was paying attention. It's like, hey, this is a 2-point game. Blank, 30-point game. What on earth just that? And they do that all. They've been doing that all year. It's like, hey, it's close. You're down by 20. It's like, what on earth?
I'm just curious what the spread is entering that game. UConn's a 12-point favorite. That's
A 12-point favorite against Purdue.
against
Or against NC State, excuse me.
no, Bama.
Bama.
Yeah,
the other team.
Which Bama?
God,
we
Mike
haven't
got
really.
so much basketball
you
teams in my
got a
brain
lot
right
to
now.
process.
And I'm still in vacation brain
I
fog.
feel you,
I am.
man.
I'll admit
I
it.
feel
I'm
you.
in vacation brain fog. But yeah.
But yeah, no disrespect to Alabama, who's had a great run.
You
Like,
imagine a 12-point favorite in the end, like
in the Final Four.
in the Final Four, and also just being a tournament game. Like, how often but you, other than UConn, right? Everybody else has been in close games. UConn's blowing the doors off everybody.
Everybody. They're so good.
Is UConn too good for basketball? Can't wait for that to happen. But you got Purdue there. Like, out in the first round to Fairleigh Dickinson, the joke of college basketball. All of a sudden, boom, back in the Final Four.
Other than well, no, it's true because Gonzaga and Tennessee were both close-ish games for Purdue. So you're right.
Yeah.
UConn's just absolutely
They're just
obliterated the field,
beating the dog out of teams. All right, so we got more basketball to talk about with Pounce coming up in the third hour. We have got a Get Off My Lawn But right now, it is time for Make or Miss.
All right, Justin. Happy to have you back for Make or Miss, my friend. It was a long week without you, so let's go ahead and dive right on in. Let's see. Let's go with this one. Angel Reese should come back for her senior year. The WNBA isn't better than college.
Well, okay, so let's rephrase that. The WNBA is a better basketball product than college basketball in terms
Is
of,
it?
Yeah. I would have whoever
I know. I'm not. I just ask a question. Just is it?
I would imagine who the Las Vegas Aces won the title last year, right? I believe they won back-to-back titles. If I'm not mistaken, it was the Las Vegas Aces who won the title last year. We're going to research this. They would beat that team, the Las Vegas Aces, would beat the dog out of every team in college basketball. Beat the dog out of every team in college basketball. Like, I don't believe it's particularly close. So, women's college basketball is more popular, and it's more popular for a couple of reasons, in my humble opinion. First off, you have got a bona fide superstar in Caitlin Clark who has a bona fide rivalry, right? This is why, and I know people argue with me because they say, I always say college football is more popular than the NFL. And like, what are you talking about? It's like, how many 100,000 seat stadiums you got in the NFL? One? The Jerry's World? And I don't even know if that's 100,000. I think it's 90 some. So why is it that there are so many? It's because college football, in terms of a spectator sport, is more popular. You look at there's double the teams in college football. Think about all the eyeballs. College football is more popular than the NFL. It's not a better product. It is more popular. And the reason why I believe it's more popular is because you have a connection. You have a connection to Oregon State because that's where you went to school, or Oregon, that's the team you grew up that represented your home state, right? Alumni, like before the transfer portal, guys would come in, they would play for your school. Then when they went to the NFL, they would switch around, right? Well, there was very few transferring for a long, long time, which, by the way, is ruining college football.
I just don't see.
But here's the thing, and I think it's the same thing with women's college basketball right now. On top of a superstar in Caitlin Clark, you've got characters in this whole with LSU and Kim Mulkey and everything else, and if you went to Iowa, right, you have a connection. Oregon State made the Elite Eight. I would imagine there's a lot of Oregon State fans who aren't exactly women's college basketball fans who are like, yeah, I'm going to get on board because that's my team. That's my school, as opposed to being the WNBA. That's why I think women's college basketball is more popular. That's why I think there's more money there, because NIL is completely unregulated.
Well, that's what I said. Like,
But I don't know. I can't sit here and say that women's college basketball is better than the WNBA. It doesn't make sense. The numbers don't, because you would get the best players. I think the top teams of the WNBA would wipe the floor with the Final Four.
Yeah, no, it's not. I don't think it's so much about that. It's like, as much as I said, like, it's a better experience to stay in college for as much as you can. You make more money. Why, if you're Angel Reese, you can get $1 million on NIL at least, if not more, and then go make $250K to go play in the WNBA? I'd be like, goodbye, WNBA. I'm going to stay in college until the NCAA tells me I can't anymore, which Justin and I have talked about. What's eligibility? Just a number.
I know. But to say that it's better, I don't know if I was – I guess we have to define better. Make more money? I think you can make more money in college, because I do think there are people that are willing to write a check for LSU and not willing to write a check for a player who plays for the Phoenix Mercury.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
Good point. And I think to that, it's like, it's like with football, right? You mentioned forever, like, college, I would agree, more popular. But there are people, and I think rightfully so, who could just be like, I'm an NFL guy. I'm not a college guy.
Sure.
I'd be willing to
But
bet.
I am a college football guy. It's clear on this show. I'm a college football guy. I like the NFL, but I like college football better. But I would never sit here and say it's a better product. It's just not.
Right, and that's where I think that when you get down to the nitty-gritty and you polled, say, 10 women's basketball fans, I'd say 9 out of 10 would rather have college on than the WNBA.
Well, I think a lot
Which
of that.
is kind of I know this is a weird way to kind of phrase this, but yeah.
I think a lot of that is just it's the appeal of alma mater, regionality, Big Ten. Like there's all sorts of other factors. It's a little bit like like the Olympics. Like we don't care about swimming. All of a sudden, well, that's Team USA. Well, let's go. Who's our guy in the butterfly this year? Do you know what I mean? But it is going to be fascinating to see, does this translate? Because let me make the opposing argument. Because I would say the easy argument for a player like Angel Reese, who if Caitlin Clark, I think she's already announced this, goes on to the WNBA, next year Angel Reese could be the most popular player in women's college basketball. The most popular. It is a household name. You can make NIL money. You can stay at LSU. And I'm sure there's a lot of LSU boosters willing to pony up checks and all that stuff. But is there maybe part of you that's like, there is a moment going on in women's college basketball that I can help translate that into the WNBA and make that sport more popular? I don't know. Because Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, like, is this the modern day Magic and Bird? Now, hear me out. I wasn't alive. I don't think I was alive. In 79 when they played in the Final Four. And I was barely born when both Magic and Bird made it into the NBA. But the narrative has always been that Magic and Bird rivalry went in from the Final Four and the national title game, went to the NBA, and that rivalry, along with cable TV and a lot of other things, kind of sparked the nationwide popularity of the NBA. There was a sport before that was, you all saw The Last Dance, right? Chicago Bulls couldn't sell tickets. Could Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese going to the WNBA be their 2024, 2025 version of Magic and Bird? Taking the popularity and the heat that they got right now, right? And going to the next level. And then, as I mentioned earlier in the show, kind of rise that tide for all the boats in the WNBA? Potentially. Or you could stay in college and collect checks. I think either way is a good call. You're in a good spot either way. But I think you're right, though, in terms of like a better opportunity to make money. Right now, yeah, it's college, bird in the hand. But what's the future, right? Does the WNBA kind of catch this women's college basketball wave? We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, it's definitely a disconnect at the moment. Like there are football fans who are like, I watch college football on Saturdays and watch NFL on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
There's that disconnect. I know quite a lot of women's college basketball fans and got to know them quite well these last couple weeks. So moving that fandom to the WNBA is where I still see as the biggest challenge, essentially.
But we've never had a player rivalry like this. We've had team rivalries, right? We have UConn and Tennessee, right? We've never had how many people watched to the end of that game to see, is something going to happen in the handshake line? Is Caitlin Clark going to give her is Caitlin Clark going to, no. It turns out nothing happened because they're competitors. But
if it was a championship game, it might have been a little bit different. That's all I'm saying. Elite Eight doesn't quite carry the same gusto.
But you've got a bona fide rivalry between the two. This is Magic Bird type stuff, I think. And you take that into the WNBA, does the popularity go along with it? That's what I'm wondering.
Maybe. I think it's a maybe right now. But the WNBA is hoping so. But
they are very much hoping so.
But I think it's still a maybe, so we'll see. But now let's go ahead and move on next. Justin, hoping you saw this drama go down over the week. Real life soap opera up there in Minneapolis. A-Rod may have bitten off more than he could chew with the Timberwolves.
All right, I didn't see this. I saw that he didn't have the financial backing that he thought he had,
So
and then he had to go ask for other money.
and no one would give it to him. So
Oh,
apparently
boy.
A-Rod not quite worth as much as he thought he was going to be worth. So essentially 3 years ago, Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez agreed to buy 40% of the Timberwolves from Glenn Taylor and then had the option, which expired a week ago, to buy basically the remainder of the team.
Gotcha.
Now,
So they currently still own 40% of the
They do.
team. Got it.
so the question now that's going to be interesting is that there's two sides to this. One, Justin, there's Glenn Taylor, who everyone said now has cold feet. It's like, oh, I sold the Timberwolves for $1.8 billion 3 years ago.
Look
They're-
at the Suns.
well,
Look at the Charlotte Hornets.
look at my West leading Timberwolves now.
Oh yeah. Also, yeah, they might be in the NBA Finals.
No Anthony
and
Edwards 3 year. I mean, just
You would. And it's
Times
probably not
changed.
likely. I wouldn't. I think the Nuggets are going to win the West.
Yeah,
but
but
like,
times have
if
changed.
you're the Timberwolves, and you win a title, like,
yeah.
could you? And I don't know who owns the Nuggets.
Kroenke.
Kroenke, and he's not going to sell it.
No.
But imagine what the Nuggets were worth 3 years ago
Oh yeah.
to what the Denver Nuggets are worth now.
Yeah.
That's what championships do.
Oh, totally.
What championships do.
You look at the Bucks before and after.
The-
Even though they had Giannis, but before and after the title, you bet.
Well, and I think the biggest vacation brain fog, sorry, evidence to this is Golden State Warriors. Golden State Warriors before the run were a joke of a franchise. They weren't like, where'd they play it before the Chase Center? The
Oracle.
the Oracle Arena. Like,
Bad.
it was a dilapidated
Yep.
arena. It was a failing franchise. If on the Forbes list, it was never near the win a couple championships. All of a sudden, value goes skyrocket. And
So-
also, I think the financial makeup of the Silicon Valley might have helped a little bit.
Yeah.
But if the Timberwolves, I don't think they're winning the title. But what
Their
if they?
future's awfully
What
bright.
if they do?
Their future's awfully
What
bright.
if they do?
So ultimately, what happened here, though, Justin, is that Mark Lore walked away and basically was like, it's up to you to come up with the rest of the money, Alex, because apparently Mark Lore had put in more money the first round, and it
Yeah.
was expected A-Rod was going to have the money the second time around to help them get over the hump.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, A-Rod tried for months to get money to no avail.
Well, and also,
So
if
how can Alex Rodriguez, again,
Well, here's my wondering is if I'm a hedge fund guy or whatever, which I'm sure that's where he went for all the
totally.
the money, I'd be like, why am I going to give you the money? Why don't I just buy the team? Because I
Maybe.
mean, NBA teams, right? As soon as they sell, everybody's making money. But like, if I'm a hedge fund guy, like, why would I just give you the money? Why would I just buy the team?
The quote that I saw was very interesting was it said, not many parties wanted to play second fiddle to a Lore A-Rod ownership group. So
Yeah.
there you go, hedge funds. And the quote was, Alex has gone through everyone, a source said. So ultimately, Justin, now it's like total discontent. Timberwolves owner says they're not for sale. Apparently, A-Rod and Mark Lore, even though they're 40% owners, have now been banned from the arena by it is massive, passive aggressive,
Love it.
total aggressive.
Loving all of it.
And they're like, we're going to see you in court. So I'm curious to see how this all ends.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, I was kind of looking forward to A-Rod being the Timberwolves owner.
I'm much here for the drama than that. Coming up, we have got we've got to get off my lawn. It is a grumpy old man Tuesday. Now listen, I may not have as much money as A-Rod, and you may not have as much money as A-Rod, but I know in 2024 we're all trying to save whatever money we got, and with springtime, a lot of people probably thinking about upcoming expenses and your budget. Well, if you all want to find a way to save money, how about DeBella? Oregon's roofing, siding, windows, and bath experts. They're a proud supporter of Operation Homefront, but they can also help you save money. You're like, what are you talking about, Justin? I've seen stuff for home improvement. That stuff's expensive. Well, if you improve your home correctly, like, say, solar shingles, you can save money on your energy bill and also receive potential incentives from state and federal governments. You can contact DeBella. They got all the details with updating your roof with solar shingles. Connecting them is easy. Estimates are free. They're scheduled on time that's convenient for you. Also, if you update your roof and update your windows, you can keep that cool air in on a nice sunny day like today, and you can keep your hot air in when it ultimately gets colder later on down the road. That saves you, again, money on that energy bill. Plus, they're going to do the work right. Make an investment in your home. Over 15,000 five-star reviews on Google. Plus, they have been featured Better Homes and Garden, HGTV, award-winning customer service with accolades from Angie's List and Home Advisor, and no payments until 2025 on approved credit. That's right, 0 payments until 2025. So check out DeBella today for a free, no-obligation appointment for roofing, windows, siding, bath projects. They are the Oregon experts. They are DeBella. All right, time to wrap up hour number 2. It is Tuesday, and while I may be back from vacation, gas tank full. Did some nice resting and relaxing. There's still some things when you get outside of your normal routine that can get your goat, as they say, can become a burr in your saddle. And well, even though I was in a beautiful resort, beautiful weather, gorgeous beach, I think, well, there's probably not much to be grumpy about, Justin. What on earth is your problem? Well, there's always something to be grumpy about. I got a couple of things. So, it is now time for you all to get off my lawn. Here we go. All right, first off, Uber drivers who do not put on the radio, you can all get off my lawn. All right, I am not a chatty Cathy in the Uber. I'm talking about to and fro the Portland airport. I'm not a chatty Cathy in the Uber. I am a let's look at our phones. Let's get us all to our destination. You get my money, and then you go out and about the rest of your day. But sitting in awkward silence is not the way to go. Can we please? I don't care what music you choose. I have heard every type of music on an Uber. But, Brendan, I am now 3 in a row on Ubers with no music being played whatsoever. And it was just like that awkward silence that I had right there, right? And plus, Kelly and I are sitting in the back seat, and it's like, well, we're not going to have a conversation about stuff with nothing going on. Like, I understand that there's a lot of Uber drivers. There's a lot of people that like to have fun conversations and a way to get to know people, and that's not what I'm about. I am about point A, point B, fastest direction. Throw on the radio, put on a playlist. What it doesn't even have to be my playlist. Just put on something. So I'm 3 for 3 with Uber drivers with no radio on. Silence. And it's like, all right, we got to do something. But that's not the biggest thing. All right, the biggest thing for people to get off my lawn. People at the resort breakfast buffet who are not aware of others around them, in particular at the omelet station. All right, we're all trying to get omelets. And I understand that we all paid a lot of money to be at this resort. And I understand that we all are here to get what we paid for because this is all inclusive. But there is a decorum, people. If there are 4 people behind you at the omelet station, let's not have a complicated omelet order, shall we? Also, let's not order for the entire table. Let's just get your ham and cheese, get your Denver, get your Western, get your mushroom, spinach, and tomato. If you want to go veggie omelet, even though you're eating eggs, that's kind of weird. But let's get a move on at the omelet station. I am amazed at the people that are there, completely unaware, or maybe I shouldn't say that. They're aware. They understand. Like, there are 4 other people behind you who have all had far too many margaritas last night, who just want a nice omelet to get the belly full, to get the blood flowing. And you know what? You have to go with a language barrier with the most complicated omelet order of your entire life. Like, what are we doing? The unaware people at the breakfast buffet, like, nice spread, but like, how are people unaware of the amount of people that are around them? And maybe to think that, you know what? I know you walked in, and I know you saw that there were other people at other tables, and I know you realized that this whole buffet is not just for you, but you had a complicated omelet order. You are now standing there like, that's bacon. Those are cheesy eggs. That's the toaster's right over there. If you want a crepe, if you want to let's get going. Now, maybe that's just me, but what on earth is with the people completely unaware at the breakfast? They can all get off my lawn. Everything about the resort was great. The battle I had with people at the breakfast buffet who are just completely unaware that there are other people there also getting breakfast. What are we doing?
So, funny story, Justin, to piggyback off of your grumpy old man slightly. Quick story, too. When I was in Mexico, we had a breakfast buffet type of place, too.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple times where I just said, nah, not worth it, because there were 4 or 5 people in line.
Unaware.
Now, I'll say this. I don't know what time you were there, Justin. I fully blame me with that line, the fact that I showed up at the breakfast buffet like 20 minutes before they closed because, they were done at 10:30 and your boy was sleeping in each day. Now,
I was there.
Yeah,
You
so
can imagine.
that's a bit surprising to me.
If you were to imagine when I got to the buffet, fairly early.
I'm
an early
You
riser.
struck me as a
Even on vacation, I'm an
you
early
struck me as
riser.
probably like at the buffet by 8.
Right around there.
Yeah, which
And you
is
know what?
Totally good.
How the amount of people that don't understand the concept of it's a buffet. Everybody's here. Everybody's going through this line. Also, here's the thing. If you're questioning, just grab it. It's all inclusive. If you don't like it,
Throw it away.
Throw it away, get another plate. This should not be this difficult. It should not be this hard to be able to figure out breakfast. Everything about my battle every single morning. And Kelly is like, take a deep breath and calm down. I'm like, but the omelet line is 4 people long. All right. So all of you, get off my lawn. All right. Glad to be back, though. Devon Pouncey, he joins us live in studio next hour, 620 Rip City Radio. It is 8 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Justin Myers with you. Portland Trailblazers came up just short against the Orlando Magic last night. They fell 104-103. DeAndre Ayton jumper to win it at the buzzer was no good. Blazers now in a three-way race for that third to last spot. Cannot catch Detroit or Washington and trying to stay. Is it ahead or behind? I don't know. But there's 7 games remaining in the season. The Blazers look to have another top 5, maybe potentially top 10 pick. The Final Four is set in women's college basketball as Caitlin Clark avenges last year's national championship loss to LSU as they took down the Tigers 94-87. Clark drops in 41 points to move on to the Final Four. And just up the road at Moda Center, UConn took down USC 80-73. Devon Pouncey, friend of the program, joins us live in studio next as we start hour number 3 on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, welcome back to Rip City Mornings. In a matter of minutes, Devon Pouncey is going to be joining the big show. He'll be joining us live in studio. Talk some hoops. You got men's hoops. Final Four is set. UConn looks like an absolute wagon. It is currently UConn versus the Field, the surprise team in NC State. But Purdue is sitting there. And this is the thing that I do like about men's college basketball, is that there is still a place for a guy like Zach Edey, right? I know that the NBA game has changed and that the analytics game and the three-point line and everything else, because when you take it as opposed to college basketball, which is 30-some games, and you extend it out to 82 regular season games, and then as long as the playoff is, and whether they're 4 games or 7 games, and the more and more games you have, the more and more the numbers kind of dictate certain things, and it makes an awful lot of sense with the amount of three-point shooting that goes on in the NBA that you are not going to win. You are not going to win in the league playing back to the basket, throw it down to the tall guy, and you're not going to and have him take, 23 seconds off of a 30-second shot clock in college, or take 21 seconds off of a 24-second shot. You're not going to win in the NBA with big, tall, lumbering dude back to the basket. Just the numbers don't add up. Even me, a basketball, not novice, but in terms of X's and O's, I don't watch the film. But I do like the fact that in 30-some games in college, with a bit of a longer shot clock, with less of a mark, you can still win games just like middle schoolers do. Throw it down to the 7'4" big tanker of a dude with his back to the basket, and you still find a way to win. Devon Pouncey now joining us live in studio. Pounce.
Hey.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you as well.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about. And definitely want to get into last night's game, both the game that you attended and the game that was going on over in Albany, New York.
Absolutely.
We got to talk about three-point line gate.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
We got to dive
Not
into
the
that.
greatest look. Not the greatest look.
But, and I'm sure yesterday, Brendan and the guys were probably talking about the men's Final Four that is set. And it's something that I think college basketball needs to find a way to embrace it. Because we've talked about all the time about what's wrong with men's college basketball, what's wrong with college basketball, and how do you fix it and all that kind of stuff. All right, I'm about embracing change now.
Yeah,
and
like
finding solutions as opposed to just complaining about the problem over and over again. And you're not going to get rid of NIL. Like, that's not ever going away. We're legislating that, right? That's not. And I don't know if you're even going to get rid of the transfer thing.
No.
I don't know if you can legally. Like, I think there is a whole legal argument to where now that they can profit, unless you create a collective bargaining agreement, guys have to be able to go where they can make the most money. So that's not going away. So I think the best way for college basketball is to embrace the fact that it's not the NBA. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I like that Purdue can win dumping it down to the 7'4" guy.
Yeah.
Playing-
That's not the case in the NBA.
You
anymore.
you can't win. There's too many.
For sure.
82 games is too many.
Yeah.
Shot clock being what it is, the volume
Yeah,
is just
stylistically, it's just not the same.
you can't win that way. But you can in college.
Yes.
And I like the fact that I think that's a way to kind of embrace college basketball is that we're not the NBA. This is a different product. There's going to be short guys that run fast breaks. There's going to be tall guys that still play with their back to the basket. There's going to be some teams
Yeah.
that play like NBA teams and have, a bunch of 6'8" dudes that all shoot threes and have big, long wingspan. Like, I think that's the thing that college basketball needs to find a way to embrace is getting away from we are the feeder program to the NBA to I was complaining about a buffet earlier.
Yeah.
We are the buffet of college of basketball. What do you like?
I
Do
agree.
you like this? You like that? We can play back to the basket. We can play full court press for an entire game.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that in the NBA.
Well,
Too many games.
I just think that's good for like the depths of the game at large too. Like I think being able to learn different styles of basketball and different ways to play the game ultimately is better, especially when we're kind of in this point in time right now where internationally the game is just skyrocketing
Yeah.
and we got this huge influx of international players coming into the NBA, which is America's league, but also just the greatest professional basketball league in the world. I think there is something to basketball. I will always say basketball is a thinking man's game. And the more that we try to simplify it and sort of make it this feeder style of basketball, if you will, in terms of the NCAA in particular, I think it takes away from, the complexities of the sport at large. And I think that's part of the reason why internationally the game is continuing to improve because they go all in with a lot of those different styles of play and those different, complexities that come with the game. And then they come here to America and they find different ways to manipulate the game. And I think that's always going to be an important element of the sport is figuring out how to manipulate the game. And hey, I'm somebody who, I did as much as I could with what I had as a college basketball player. I had to manipulate the game to even be able to go as far as I did. And I think once you get to these higher levels, there's only 1 to 3 stars on every NBA team. Everybody else has to figure out a way to manipulate the game in some way, shape, or form to be able to find a fit and ultimately make an NBA roster. And so I think that there's some value to the college system and to the fact that, stylistically guys can learn different ways in how to play basketball because it's not a one-trick pony sport, even though we're trying to make it that way because Steph Curry showed up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I do believe that there's a lot more value to, guys being able to learn different ways, how to play within a system, how to be a teammate and really kind of learn that style of basketball more than the NBA, which is a lot more situational because everybody's elite.
Well, I'm interested to see if in the men's college game, they are going to allow, and when I say allow, I'm not talking about boosters, fan bases, and everything else. Are they going to allow like teams like Purdue who are like, no, we're going to win this way? And because if Purdue wins it all this year, and UConn's a wagon,
UConn's a wagon.
UConn is going to be a tough. Dude, they aren't even playing yet, and still we're like, UConn, who knows? But for a long, long time, right? It was Duke, it was North Carolina, it was Villanova with all those NBA guys
For
like
sure.
Jalen Brunson and all those guys, where it was like, and even getting to the Final Four was like, you got to have NBA type dudes on your team. We have talked about the emergence of the G League, but mostly also the emergence of international basketball. And like, I think you can have a college basketball team with a starting 5 of guys that have no chance of going to the NBA. But like you said, you find a system, you work that system, you can win.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can win at the highest level. And
Absolutely.
I think that's why I kind of like the Purdue story. UConn, they got dudes going to the NBA.
Yeah, for sure.
Kentucky,
Yeah, the
even
talent.
though I know they lost early, but like
Yeah.
Kentucky's got NBA dudes. But like, I think if college basketball is going to kind of find a new identity as opposed to just being the kind of feeder program, coaches are going to have to get creative, and also boosters are going to have to get creative. Be like, look, don't worry about the 5-star guys. Like, you can win with a guy like Zach Edey, who I think he was a 3-star guy coming out of high school.
He's a beast,
and it was
man.
only because he was taller than everybody.
Yeah,
So,
he's a beast, man. He's a beast. And I last year I actually picked Zach Edey to win the national
it's
championship.
a tough pick.
And my bracket got busted in the first round, in the round of 64. But part of the reason was because I watched them play at the PK tournament here in Portland. And they played against the Dukes and all of the top schools. And you could just see how that system just worked better. And just, I had a feeling that this year was what they were going to be last year. Unfortunately, that didn't quite happen for my bracket. But you could definitely see where he didn't have a bunch of NBA guys around him. His team wasn't more athletic or more superior from a skill standpoint than other teams. But you got a big guy who can clog the paint and who has a feel for the game, has enough touch to be able to score when needed. And you got other guys around him that can shoot and that are more like hard-nosed and willing to play defense. And I watched him win the PK 85 out here with that style of basketball. And I do think that there's still a healthy balance where, if you can get talented guys to come to your program and also get them to buy in to whatever that system is, you got a team like UConn. You know what I'm saying? But and I think that's still necessary for college basketball as well, which is why I kind of think it's a good thing that the Ignite is no longer, because I think the Ignite and obviously other avenues have taken away some of that star power from college basketball, which I think is every bit as important as being able to have these kind of hard-nosed guys that can play this systemic basketball and still maybe beat some of that star power. But I do think that you need kind of a healthy balance of both, and that will ultimately get the narrative surrounding men's college basketball back to what it once was, at its peak.
I know we're late to this, but I was gone last week, and we've talked about the G League a lot because obviously you were there for the remix and you were calling the game. What happened with the Ignite? It seemed like a good idea.
Yeah.
Is it one of those things where it's like on paper it worked, but in practice it just didn't quite work? Because it seemed like a good hey, you were good enough to go to the NBA.
Yeah.
You don't want to go to college. I get it. You want to get paid, and this is a development way to get in there. It's not hurting college because those guys don't want to go to college. What happened?
Reports would tell you that Ignite, that the reason why, Adam Silver decided to do away with the Ignite, and, Sharif Abdul-Rahim, who is the NBA G League president, went to do away with Ignite was because they were trying to fill a void from the NCAA because they did it prior to NIL and the transfer portal becoming a thing. And so that's what reports would say, though. I got a little bit more of a conspiracy brain about all of this because I do agree that, guys were going overseas. I think a lot of that really started kind of with the Ball family, honestly. And guys are going overseas. Then you started getting, guys getting creative, getting internships. Darius Baisley going to get an internship. And so you had all of these kind of things. But for me, I also think that, every NBA team did not have a G League affiliate at that time either. So I do think that the Ignite also mattered in that regard. But now that the Blazers obviously just had our inaugural season with a G League affiliate with the Rip City Remix, and then the Phoenix Suns just now have added their team that'll be playing starting next season. I think no team is now at a disadvantage when it comes to the G League and being able to have that affiliate and those guys come through. And I think that the NBA is seeing kind of the writing on the wall, particularly Adam Silver, where you need to prop up college basketball again when it comes to American basketball as a brand because of the international influx. And I think going away with the Ignite kind of allows you to send some of that star power back to the NCAA while at the same time knowing every NBA affiliate is now no longer at a disadvantage because, every NBA team is no longer at a disadvantage because now everyone kind of has that feeder affiliate team. And so I think that, all the way around, it was just better for the game of basketball to go away with the Ignite. And quite frankly, they just weren't competing well. Like they were at the bottom of the standings, the last couple of years. So I think there's more to just the NIL void, but also the fact that the brand of basketball here in America is being challenged a little bit. I still think it's the best, but everywhere else is starting to elevate.
Or the NIL thing, you're right, because like college boosters, don't ever underestimate their ability to overpay. But they're overpaying both the men's and the women's. Women's basketball had a moment last night.
Oh, yeah.
And we kind of predicted it a couple of weeks ago. It happened. Caitlin Clark showed up. 41 points. We'll talk about that. The Final Four, the UConn USC game that you were at last night, all sorts of stuff. As we continue with our good friend Devon Pouncey next year on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, our basketball analyst here at Rip City Mornings, friend of the program, Devon Pouncey, joining us live in studio, and he's also the Rip City Remix basketball analyst. So let's talk about last night.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to, like, I think it is disrespectful is not the word, but I think it's a little recency bias to get into it. Was this women's college basketball's biggest night ever? But it certainly was a moment.
For sure.
It certainly was one of those things where I think most people, including myself, because I've admitted this is not a criticism. It's just I'm not a big women's basketball fan.
Yeah.
I don't watch an awful lot. I flew in, got home. I was like, this game's tied at half. Like,
yeah.
I'm going to tune in.
Right.
And we've talked about it, kind of how not only is there great players, and not only I think a big part of the thing that's going is Caitlin Clark is a record-breaking superstar, but there is a rivalry there.
Absolutely.
There is a rivalry of not just two teams that don't like each other, but also of varying styles. I don't know if it's appropriate to go into heroes and villains, especially because we've talked about the racial undertones
For sure.
of the two teams, but it is LSU has definitely played up the Miami Hurricanes of the 80s.
Yeah.
Or the Bad Boy Pistons.
Right.
Like have played up
We here.
we are not here to celebrate Golden Goose over there. And so there was that. But it was a huge moment for women's basketball, and I think I'm curious as to like what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
Now maybe that's a discussion for a different time, but I'm always just kind of curious of like, all right, what happens next? Because that was a made for TV event. And I think a big part of it is there was a Magic and Bird type rivalry
For sure.
that I don't know if we've seen in women's college basketball.
I agree wholeheartedly, but I'm glad that you asked what happens next because from where I sit, and I attended the UConn versus USC game last night, and we can get into a little bit more of that. But I think now all of the people that came and showed up for this because of the undertones of the Magic and Bird type rivalry, however it is that you want to put it, I think now they can more so dive into and have more interest in the intricacies of women's basketball. So you have obviously Iowa goes and they beat LSU, and it's like, where do we go from here? Well, if you watched that game last night, there's a young lady by the name of Paige Beckers who, for all intents and purposes, was Caitlin Clark before she went away with this when she had an ACL injury. And then Caitlin Clark just skyrocketed and became, the best player. She's always been good throughout her entire career. Obviously, you're not breaking the records. She does without that. But a lot more people were calling Paige Beckers the best player in the country prior to her tearing her ACL.
Yeah.
And then once she kind of went away, it was all Caitlin Clark from there, respectfully and rightfully so. Well, now you get an opportunity. Paige is back from the ACL injury. She's got her team back to the Final Four, and she gets to face off against Caitlin Clark and kind of try to get her acclaim back, if you will, of being the best player in the country and ultimately try and go and win a championship. So I think from a just pure basketball standpoint, which is something that I hope people are interested in now that they see how good the product is based on whatever it is that reeled you in, the undertones, the rivalry, whatever elements reeled you in. I hope you can now see that the basketball is really, really good at this level, and there are storylines out there, at this level as well. And now Caitlin's got to go and play against the UConn team, which is the greatest women's college basketball program in the history of the sport, and against Paige Beckers, who before she went down with the ACL injury was being called more so than Caitlin was the best player in the country. So now it's almost kind of a revenge game for Paige to kind of show the world that I'm still here and I'm still arguably the best player that this game has to offer.
Well, here's what else I think is going to be interesting. And I'm going to go over some of those storylines in the Final Four because I've got another one with South Carolina and Dawn Staley. Because all right, let's just get to that right now. I've got to wonder what Dawn Staley is thinking and telling her team, maybe not telling media, but telling her team about people on TV, people on the radio who are saying, oh, Caitlin Clark, greatest women's basketball player of all time.
Yeah.
Dawn Staley might have an argument there.
Yes.
And so I like you talk
Yeah.
about a storyline of like all these Johnny come latelys, all
Yeah.
these like just getting on the bandwagon, just who never watched any women's college basketball before 2 years ago
For sure.
when they saw Caitlin Clark shooting threes. It was like greatest of all time, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's a fascinating storyline.
Absolutely.
Not only you mentioned Paige Beckers. I say that right?
Yep. Paige
All right.
Beckers. Just call her Paige Buckets if you get confused.
There you go.
There you
but
go.
also, and Gino Oriama going like, "Oh, you guys thought we were done."
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I'm arguably the greatest women's coach of all time. So there are some intricacies of you guys just got on the block.
Yeah.
Like easy,
sure.
easy there. You just got on the block. We've
Haven't
been
won
here.
anything. Haven't won a championship yet.
So that's always fascinating to me. But I want to go back to because now I wasn't alive. You weren't alive. Brendan wasn't alive. But I have heard stories, and it's become such a legend that one of the biggest things that gave the NBA the bump that it got in the 80s was the Magic Bird rivalry.
Absolutely.
And it started at Michigan State, Indiana State, and then it went into the 80s. And there were a lot of reasons why some people were Magic fans and some people were Larry
For
Bird
sure.
fans. And wasn't all just Boston and LA,
Yeah.
right?
Facts.
And so I wonder if because Brendan asked me, he's like, if you're Angel Reese, do you go to the WNBA or do you stay at LSU? I think financially, you might be better at LSU next year. I think, but
She would say different, but I
Yeah.
tend to agree with you.
I don't know again how the economics of it all work.
Yeah.
And because we don't know exactly how much NIL money is being funneled there, but regardless, but you take that rivalry that is already there and has all the stuff that Magic and Bird had
For sure.
of, hey, Iowa farm girl, LSU,
Bayou Barbie.
Bayou Bar. It's got all the stuff
It's
there.
got
and
all
I
the
know
stuff.
that
I agree.
people want to like shy away from it. And I understand why some people are nervous to even bring that up, but it's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
And
And I
it
think
can
we should
be-
embrace it.
And it can be, I'm with you. That's
I
why.
think we should embrace
we
That's why
love-
we do Ebony and Ivory, baby. That's why we here.
So, is what, but like, and the WNBA needs to embrace it
Yeah.
next year. And I understand it's probably going to upset a lot of the old guard, but that's how the business works,
Yeah.
right? There were a lot of people, and there were a lot of basketball players back in the 80s who probably were Magic and Bert. No, I've been here. And it's like, sorry, and it's that famous story of like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar probably should have been the MVP of the final. They gave it to Magic.
Yeah.
It's Magic. That's the bump.
It's the bump.
He had
Yeah.
the $1 million smile, and then there
It's
was
the marketing bump, baby.
and so that's where I wonder about how this momentum that women's college basketball has, how that maybe translates to the W. It's Angel versus Caitlin. It's Magic and Bird. This is
I
what we're
like it.
seeing.
I personally think Angel is going to come back to LSU next season. I think, you
Yeah.
know, she obviously hasn't committed yet to going to the draft. She hasn't really said what she's doing next season yet. I think she'll come back. I do think that, you know, from just a pure basketball standpoint, another year of college basketball could help her just as she kind of continues to develop. She's a great athlete, has great feel for the game. I think she's a very smart player. I think in some areas she could be like a little bit raw. And so I think, you know, college basketball, another year of college basketball for her, I do think would be great. Where I think, you know, obviously in Caitlin's case, you just got to go. She's just way too good.
Yeah.
You know, she's WNBA ready right now. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I do still think, you know, at the collegiate level, you know, now you talk about still going back to, you know, kind of where do you go from here? It's like now, again, we talked about the Final Four and its storylines, but then I as much as I hate to say this because she's probably my favorite player in women's college basketball, I enjoyed seeing Juju go through what she had to go through last night. And that's going to just give her more fuel and motivation to try to come right behind Caitlin and break all of her records because she's on pace based on the historic freshman season that she came out and had. And I see no signs of that slowing down. I do think it'll be interesting to see, you know, with USC in particular, they're probably a lot better off when it comes to being able to recruit than that of an Iowa. And I think, you know, there's something to be said to that in regards to why Caitlin was able to sustain is the way she was throughout her career and ultimately break all the records that she broke. I think USC is going to be able to get better recruiting classes throughout Juju's career where she may not have as many opportunities to just take over games night in and night out because I think, you can get more star powered in LA than you can in Iowa, quite frankly. So it's going to be hard to break that record. But still, I think she's got the tools to be one of the greatest women's basketball players of all time. So I just think there's a lot, with the game all the way around. And I do think, again, digging into the intricacies and having a legitimate interest in women's basketball, there's more than enough there in the product to continue to go and grow with the game because the talent level is only getting better all the way around. And yes, while I think, the rivalry of Caitlin and Angel has been great, I think if you just look top to bottom of what this game has become and you just go out and watch some of these games or just turn your TV on and watch some of these games, you can very well see LeBron James might not like what I'm about to say, but these young ladies have a bag like never before in women's basketball. The skill has grown tremendously. The athleticism has grown tremendously, and they're catching up with the progress of the game just like everybody else in the world is. And I think it's been shown, and that's why the product has been so great.
Here's what I've always wondered, because I remember, obviously, when Sabrina Mania hit a handful of years ago.
For sure.
And it felt like, Oregon State made the Final Four. The next year, Oregon made the Final Four. You had a rivalry there.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, Sabrina was one of the best players in the world. And then COVID.
Yeah.
And COVID put a huge wrench into what was already kind of starting.
The momentum was there,
to get that momentum. And that was around here, and I think a little bit nationwide, but nothing like we see now. And then the whole Caitlin Clark thing comes around, and then you get the rivalry. And this is the thing that I think, because I wonder, is this a Caitlin Clark bubble that is just going, now she goes to the WNBA and that bubble pops? I don't think so, and here's why. Because of kind of what you said. Juju Watkins is right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right there.
There's some girl in high school right now probably putting up all sorts of buckets.
That's going to USC with Juju, by the way.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then is not going to leave after 1 year.
No.
And maybe not even going to transfer
Facts.
after 1 year. And you mentioned the reason why last night's game, I believe, there's multiple reasons. There's always multiple reasons. But one of the biggest reasons why last night's game between LSU and Iowa was so big was because of the year before.
Yep.
Because
That's a fact.
Angel Reese did the you can't and pointed to the ring finger
Right.
and it got everybody had an opinion on that. It's like, we get to do it all over again.
Yeah.
Men's college basketball, you don't get to do that over again.
No. Yeah, one and done, baby.
Zach Edey got a chance, they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson, they got a chance to come back, but very rarely, none of those Kentucky players are going to worry about, they're going to the NBA.
You want to get that back.
And same with UConn's winning back-to-back, but it's with almost a completely different team.
For sure.
And then the transfers happen and all that. Whereas that's where women's college basketball has kind of a little bit of an advantage of, I know that next year Juju Watkins is going to be playing for USC.
Yeah, they're going to get that degree in women's college basketball.
And but I know
right now.
But I know that's going to be there.
Yeah.
Not is she going to transfer? Is she going to be one and done? No. She's going to be there next year. And maybe they'll face off against UConn, and
Paige is coming back. She's already said she's coming back. She could have went into the draft this year, but being out all last season with the ACL injury plus the COVID rule, she'll be back. So that storyline will still be there.
Basketball has a lot of times. I know that on the men's side, it was a lot about the coaches, right? It was Coach K, it was Izzo, it was Calipari, right? It was a lot about the coaches. But when I was growing up, in the 90s, when I believe college basketball, men's college basketball was in its heyday, it was Leitner. It was the Fab Five.
Yeah.
It was UNLV, right?
Georgetown.
With Patrick Ewing and Allen Iverson later, right?
Yeah.
It was basketball is a game of stars.
Right.
Always. Football is a game of brands.
For sure.
Basketball is a game of stars.
Agreed.
College basketball lost a lot of its stars. Well, the women's side right now, and Caitlin Clark is the biggest star, but
the stars are brewing over there.
I know who Angel Reese is.
Yep.
I know who Juju Watkins is, right? And so you've got, I think, this chance. You can't ruin it like men's college basketball and let them transfer all over the place.
Yeah.
But I know that you can't really contain that. But
I don't think that's really going to happen because, again, I think the degree is every much as important as their career beyond college basketball and playing professionally. So I think with that, you get a little bit more stability from an academic side of things where, again, on the men's side, most guys, even if it's going overseas or anything else, most guys have this dream of playing professional basketball, probably more so than they do getting a degree, getting a collegiate degree, because they know that there's just more money to be made on the men's side to be able to make a living playing the game of basketball. In some cases, that may be a little bit short-sighted, but when you see that big pot of gold at the end of the yellow brick road or at the end of the rainbow, it's like, I'm going to go for that. You know what I'm saying? We're on the women's side. The education is every bit as much as important as, you know, what it is that you're doing out there on the floor and trying to have a career post playing college basketball. So I think you won't see as much craziness in the transfer portal. Now, I think we're in a unique time because, as I mentioned, that COVID year, so you will start to see, obviously, you know, Haley Van Lith was one of them. You know, she was at Louisville and transferred to LSU, and I hope she's doing all right this morning after last night's performance, having to guard up against Caitlin Clark. But still, those are the elements that might shake up the transfer portal on the women's side more so than it is guys just trying to jump around and find an opportunity that they feel like can help boost them to be able to play professionally beyond their college careers.
Devon Pouncey joining us live in studio. Real quick, because I know you were there in Portland.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the big story in Portland was the three-point line.
Yeah.
How often do you think that's happened before? Like, it was.
I've never heard of it.
The only reason I think you could tell, though, if they didn't do the contrasting wood colors.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'd ever noticed.
I don't either.
Because, like, you just always you get on the court. And I know there are a lot of people that were hand-wringing about it. There was a lot of pearl clutching about it. It's like, these things, unfortunately, I don't know if something like that, unfortunately, happened. I remember, I think it was an Oregon game. They were playing at Moda. They do a jump ball in the NBA. They don't have a possession arrow. And I remember they were playing at Moda. They're like, we don't have a possession arrow.
Yeah. Like,
somebody had to draw one on the thing. So it's like, but like, do you think we're ever going to find out what happened? Or is that one of those things that gets buried? Like,
it might just get buried and somebody might get fired.
There was a meeting on Saturday. It's like, nobody says a word.
Yeah, because that's a pretty big stage to make that kind of a mistake on. And so I don't think we'll find out what happened actually, but I do think whoever it was that had to do with that may not have a job today. And I think they're going to kind of try to just keep it at that. And they don't want, you know, the 3-point gate, if you will, to overshadow everything else that you and I just talked about when it comes to women's college basketball. That's what I think.
All right, coming up next, we're going to wrap up the big show. We have got an RCM mailbag. I was on vacation, and we do our Ebony and Ivory segment, and I wonder, do we vacation the same? Do our cultures, we vacation the same?
I like it.
So we got that
to
wrap up the big show next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up the big show. Devon Pouncey sticking around for the mailbag, and it's a special mailbag anytime Pounce is in studio because we bring back our segment, which we titled Ebony and Ivory, which is a chance for us to have conversations that maybe some people are a little too afraid to, and I understand why, but the fact that you and I are friends, and we know that everything we ask is coming from a place of curiosity, not a place of judgment.
Thanks.
And it's just a chance to learn a little bit and embrace the differences, and then find out, you know what, maybe not so different after all, because
Mhm.
you just got to get out and open. You know, they always say, hey, we got to have a conversation about this. This is said conversation, only it's goofy and silly. We call it Ebony and Ivory. Here we go. All right. And this is almost a question just for you personally.
Yeah.
And Brendan, I'm curious about you as well in this. I was in Mexico for 6 days.
Nice.
I do not speak a lick of Spanish.
Okay.
Like, not even hola. That's about cerveza.
Got
Like,
it.
I got,
Got it.
but after a while, you kind of pick up a little bit. Now, my wife, because she did this when we were in Greece, and she did it. She likes to be able to say hello and good morning. So she speaks French, but she said gracias, bienvenido.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to make a mistake, so I just say thank you and try to smile a lot.
Yeah.
When you if you were to go to Mexico, or if you've ever been to Mexico, do you go Spanish, or do you go, or you just try to be polite?
I don't particularly full on go Spanish, and the only time I've been to Mexico was on a cruise. So like
Gotcha.
when you get there, you kind of do the excursions. But I do try and immerse myself as much as I possibly can to learn everything about the area that I'm in. And if that means I got to try to catch on to a little bit of Spanish, or if I have an interpreter nearby, like I will cling to that person.
Wait,
so
an
that
interpreter, you say?
I will cling to the person that could, can speak Spanish.
Gotcha. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That can speak Spanish and then translate for me whatever it is that's going on around. Like if I have that person available to me, that person becomes my best friend. Because if I don't understand what's going on and you do, like you might be telling me all of the stuff that they aren't saying, but I'm rolling with you.
Well, because we had a friend in our group who was maybe a little too confident in his Spanish, shall we say.
Yeah.
And to where I was almost nervous because I'm like, dude, can we just speak English so we can, like, I know you think you speak Spanish well, but I don't think you do. What about you, Brendan? You were in Mexico a couple months ago. Do you go Spanish?
Not a word. Not a word.
Do you when you say, like, do you say thank you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just,
Yeah.
just taking my garb from here. That's why I said, it's funny. At the all-inclusive restaurant, like they spoke to you in mostly English. Like,
Yeah,
that's
there's usually
not,
somebody. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
and it's like,
people.
I'm American. I did my 2 years of Spanish in high school. That's all I need.
I didn't even do that.
We're spoiled here, though.
This
The
is true.
majority of us are the ones that don't know how to speak anything other than English,
That's
but
it.
everybody
Booyah,
everywhere
Devon.
else knows how to speak
It's-
our language. That's our problem.
Listen,
It is
That's
our
a we
problem.
problem.
Tip of the cap, better. Like, I get
my
it.
friend.
Like, yeah.
That's a we problem.
But what was interesting at this resort, and I learned this, that because I was there over the weekend, which was Easter. Easter, huge holiday in Mexico. Huge. Like the guy, one of them, we were on a boat. Our boat guide said, yeah, in Puerto Vallarta, the two busiest days are New Year's. He said the Americans come for New Year's,
Yeah.
and the Mexicans come for Easter.
Nice.
And so our resort was not just only Americans.
Yeah.
It was, but I'll tell you what, that staff is dialed in. They took one look at me and they were like, good morning.
Good morning. They get it. We're the problem.
Like, good morning.
Yeah, we're the problem here. We're the problem in all of
But
this.
Easter was a big day, huh? Like I know,
Huge.
obviously, Catholicism is huge down in Mexico.
And
but
well,
yeah.
I believe they get Monday off at the day after
Okay.
Easter. It was
Makes sense.
a whole fiesta. It was, yeah,
Yeah.
it's all sorts. Do black people like to lay by the pool?
We like to, more so than get in the water because all of us don't swim the great.
Well, the resort, it was everything was shallow. It was a swim up.
Yeah.
It was
Well, then we'll get in
it was
we'll
to
get in the
cool
water.
off.
But
and-
then we got different hair textures than y'all. We got different things going on, especially for women more so. So, but yeah, we like to lay by the pool. Yes.
because I don't. Now my wife
Yeah,
and
'cause-
all of my friends, like, I was SPF'd up, dude. But like, also just like I don't know. I think I got too much energy.
Yeah.
Like laying by the pool, I get very bored.
Yeah, I'm not
But-
a lay by the pool guy myself. Like, I don't see the thrill of having the sun beaming on me, especially because I don't particularly need the tan. But like
Yeah.
there are people that just it's just relaxing to
Mhm.
them, I guess, more so. So yeah, of course. And of course, there's things you could do, put caps on your head, whatever the case may be, to be able to adjust. But yeah, no, we do. We surround the pool more so than we get in the pool in a lot of instances.
It was funny because where we were, there was a group of African American women on a bachelorette party, and asked my wife and then my friend's wife if they had sun tanning lotion instead of just sunscreen, and I was like, "You didn't ask me." And she was like, "Well, making friends, just making
That's
friends."
how it goes. That's how it goes. Okay. Since we talked about it earlier and embracing kind of,
Mhm.
the racial undertones of the Caitlin Clark and LSU thing, which again I don't think has to be taken with a negative connotation, because I definitely was going for LSU. Unashamed to say
Yeah.
that. I can identify more with LSU's players than I probably could Iowa's and Caitlin Clark, even though I love what it's all doing for the game of basketball in the end. Were you rooting for Iowa yesterday? And was there anything, based on kind of the storyline in the past year that has kind of made you cling to Iowa and Caitlin Clark, the story of Caitlin Clark, a little bit more?
I haven't, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because I'm a scumbag sometimes. You know how they always like, oh, we love to build them up and then tear them down?
For sure.
I'm the tear them down guy.
Okay, got it. So you're waiting to see her
It's
fall
like
off.
I want to see tears. I want to see tears.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of people on my social media. Right. And I
Yeah,
was
your
like,
algorithms were probably,
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark all the way.
Yes.
Compared to mine's.
Clearly,
we
they're like,
we like rapping Flage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Justin listens to Luke Combs a lot. All right, here comes.
I would have liked to see LSU repeat, Devon. I was pulling for them
Okay.
in that game.
Yeah.
Only because once my Beavers got eliminated, I was like, all right, South Carolina, I'd like to see them go. But, to kind of zig when everyone else kind of zags, I
Yeah.
respect the greatness,
yeah.
but I'm kind of over Caitlin Clark in Iowa.
It's getting there.
Like,
Skip-
do you guys get what I'm saying? Like,
And it's not her fault.
No, it's
No,
not.
not at all.
It's our fault.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
media, it's like all inundated with people go like, all right, enough of it. And I kind of like, I root for chaos. I root
Yeah.
for fireworks. I
For
kinda
sure.
Kind of want to see some fireworks.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was like,
I think
nah.
you get more fireworks out of an LSU
Yeah.
win
Then
last night than
Angel
an
fouled
Iowa win.
out, and it was like,
Yeah, it's over.
all right,
Yeah.
it's over. But it was a fantastic show, fantastic hour. Pounds,
Yes, sir.
thanks for coming in.
Always a pleasure.
You can now that your basketball season's over, you got
Yeah.
DJing all over the place.
DJing everywhere. Tune into the podcast. Subscribe
That's
to
right,
the
the Wake Up and Win podcast.
We still at it weekly, and we talk about all of this women's basketball stuff.
There
so
we go. I'll be
lock
back.
in.
I'll be back tomorrow, bright and early. We'll talk to you then on 620 Rip City Radio.